Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics, back with Love Notes Section 4. We're moving right along in our quilt. Hopefully you're having a great time. So let's jump right in. There's lots to cover. As I grab my bags out that were already labeled, there's a lot going on in Section 4. So we have lots of bags. Make sure to grab your applique. We're going to be doing that. We get to put it in a zipper. I mean, we're doing things that I have rarely done. So we're going to have a good time together. So let's grab out those instructions. We'll just turn the page and see what is next along this mystery quilt here. Dear Mr. Postman, how cute is that? So we'll grab our yellow fabric, and we have lots of applique pieces. Aren't you glad those are cut out for you? There are certain times where more intricate shapes, I'm like, thank goodness for lasers, and just the ability to grab those shapes out and be able to peel off the paper backing and just go. So I'm always grateful for that. So of course she talks about her background fabric, which is our yellow. You know, anytime you've got a fabric that's in a bag and you've folded it, go ahead and give that a good press ahead of time, rather than trying to think that along the way you'll press it out during the applique process, because you might have to have your iron actually too hot to get those wrinkles out, and then maybe overheat the fusible webbing that's on the back of the applique shapes. I always like to iron things out at full on the linen setting, the hottest setting of my iron. And of course I iron down applique shapes more on a medium setting. So that's why I like to get that all ironed out and nice and smooth and ready to go. So we have all of our shapes, and she says right away, note, fusible woven interfacing is recommended on the back of the stripe, letter, and letter accent fabrics to reduce shadowing. So right away what she's talking about is this is kind of our envelope and our letter. And we've gone ahead, just as we did previously, and we put a special interfacing on behind here for you so that when you do lay that piece onto the next, it helps reduce the shadowing. So we've taken care of that for you again. You don't need to worry about that step. Applique, we know all about that because we're going to take care of most of that for you. We need to do a little bit of that, but most of that's been taken care of. So we're going to move right along actually to the hand embroidery. Now this big beautiful post box that we're going to be putting all of our little love letters in, we've cut out all of those shapes for you, but one thing I want to encourage you to do is to trace the word letters onto that stripe fabric before you take that to the background, because once that's on the background, it's going to be very difficult to see, even with a light box, to see the lettering. So I've done that ahead of time. I removed the paper on the back, and this is also a lined fabric, so it's going to feel a little bit thicker to you. And I went ahead and traced out the words letters with a micron pen, right? Because we know that when we iron that down to the background, or actually to the red, if I'd used the micron pen, or the friction pen, my wording would be gone. So again, be sure to use the right tool for the job, and this time it's a micron or permanent marker is what we're getting at. All right, I think what I'm going to go ahead and do, I want to pre-assemble this, and while that's cooling down, we're going to work on building the pocket and the zipper. So let's go ahead. We'll put our background to the side right now, and we'll grab our diagram, which is fantastic here. She has you do some pre-marking. I'm going to skip that step right now. We've marked the letters, and she has you potentially pre-mark where that little pocket's going to go. I'm going to skip forward through that step right now, and let's go ahead and just assemble with the light box. We have our Applifuse mat, which we love very much. We'll put that right on top of there, and I'll move my little bags aside for the moment. We've got our everything heating up. So, you know, anytime you know you're going to be doing fusible applique, I kind of try to get this as close to my wool pressing mat as I can, because I kind of quickly want to go here and iron everything down. So let me move that out of the way for just a moment. And let's scoot these things next. This is a more ideal situation. It's just side by side. I'm always a little limited on space on the set here, but ideally they're really side by side. So step one will be, if we kind of look at our shape here, it's easier to see it if you're referring to the one that we've done in advance. You can see that this post, we've built that tuck under for you, and the same here. So those will go down first, along with our red piece, our nice beautiful arch over the top, and then we'll put that down, and then finally we'll put down our envelope. So we can do that in the same sequence. And as we've mentioned before, and I'll show you this, this doesn't have a tuck under built in, but we did that part for you. That's why your shape, your lacer shape, is longer than the shape here. So just lay this piece down where it belongs and let that extra extension go underneath, because that's the part that will tuck under. And you've seen us do that before in the previous section. So we'll push that down. Actually, I want to line that just a little bit better. Let's push that right down. There's lots to cover today, things that I rarely do. A zipper foot, I mean, I've done that like a couple times in my whole life. We get to do that together. We get to do a buttonhole stitch where you're making a true buttonhole. All right, what do we decide we're going to do next? Let's go ahead and put this piece down. And we'll do our arch over the top. And now you've seen me do this so many times, you're going to be spoiled. You're going to be like, what do you mean I have to cut out my own applique shapes? What do you mean I have to trace my own applique shapes? I want them cut. Yes, this is a quick thing to get very much accustomed to because of the convenience of it. Okay, let's see if I can see where those letters go. The word, there it is. I can see it now. So if you're ever unsure like I was, again, my light box is turned down for video. My first step would be to turn it all the way as bright as possible. I won't do that because it's too bright for the overhead camera, but for you at home, that would be your first step, is to turn your light box all the way to the max and then see if you can see the line where the letters go. And then if not, take a quick peek under here and then just adjust accordingly. Now, once we believe we have everything where it belongs, just double check everything. And I want to tell you a little secret that I've learned along the way. Let's say that you iron something down, you're like, oh no, it's in the wrong spot. Here's what I've learned. If you heat it up again and you're very quick about it, you can remove it. Sometimes you can get away with there being no glue left on the background. Most of the time there's a little bit that you can kind of scrape off with your fingernail. So all is not lost. There are times where I have misaligned something, put it in the wrong layering sequence, and I've made that change and it worked out fine, so no worries. All right, let's move that over here and we're going to heat that up. Now while that's happening, we know we have another little envelope here. And I kind of do things in stages. I would go ahead and take care of those two pieces of my envelope first and secure that so that my envelope is one piece. And then we have an opportunity to draw a heart on, or I'd like to suggest maybe the idea of, if you don't want to do the hand embroidery, of doing the heart on the envelope, as there should be plenty of the glitter left over, that if you just want to trace a heart out of your glitter paper, and I've done one ahead of time just to show it to you. Let's see if I can remember where I put that. I might have moved it, or it might have fallen. I've done one actually over here. I'll show it to you real quick. I'm jumping ahead now. Sorry about that. Here Kim has a stitch, a heart on here. I thought, well, you know what? What would it look like if I did glitter there instead? I love using the glitter. I'm really enjoying that so much. I'm like, how can I use that more? Well, absolutely. Anytime you see hand embroidery, a red heart, and you have some of that red glitter, take that option if you prefer it. So don't be afraid to change it up. But if you love to do the satin stitch and the hand embroidery, go ahead and stick with that. But I wanted to mention that as an option for you. All right, so one of the things that kind of brought me to that conversation, that thinking, is right here, once you get this stitched down or ironed down to the background, we're going to be tracing these shapes. Again, if you don't want to do satin stitch here, don't be afraid to go grab a gray. Don't be afraid to maybe grab a red glitter again. If you don't want to be doing the satin stitch, don't be afraid to do that. I think sometimes people, and I was that as well, I was kind of stuck, like feeling like I couldn't deviate from what was in the pattern. And you absolutely can. It looks like I need to stitch this down a little bit. Heat that up just a little bit more. I'm going to let that sit there. And I think what we'll do while that's cooling is let's go take care of the envelope right now. I just didn't heat that up long enough. So the same is true with our little, we've lined that, and we will bring our stripe down. And the same is true on all of these mailboxes here. They all have envelopes. Notice there's 3 envelopes in your mailboxes. Let me put this one aside with a little glitter. There's 3 envelopes. Each of those goes in the mailbox, and there's an envelope that's just a little bit smaller. The one that's a little bit smaller is the one that's on the post box, and that's the one that I have in my hands right here. I've already peeled off the paper, and we'll just position that. Anytime I can pre-assemble subunits, I like to do that. So that way, when I move that onto here, this is a unit. Here's the other reason I want to do that. If I do indeed decide to trace the heart onto that, which I would need to do if I'm going to do the hand embroidery, I need to have this off of that, or I'm never going to be able to see through that. So always keep that in mind. So if I want to say, yep, I'm going to go ahead and do the satin stitch, I like that, you would lay this down here, brighten that light box. I'm going to grab a friction pen. Actually, I can't, can I? I need to grab a permanent. I caught myself. Why is that bad? Because I would trace that heart, and the moment I iron that to the background, it's gone. So let's go ahead and use our permanent marker. And we'll just draw our heart. Be careful with this, because what you draw, you now are going to live with that. You need to make sure you cover that black line, or whatever color you're using, with your thread. So those lines really count. They're not going to iron away. All right, once that's in place, I can actually bring this back here if I can even see through it. Ever so slightly I can. Again, if you're at home, go ahead and brighten that all the way to the max. I can just barely see it, like that. Now, personally for me, I think I'd probably use the glitter right here, because that's another thing to think about. You're going through a lot of layers. These 2 layers, plus this layer, plus the background to go to do the hand embroidery. Now, you could do the hand embroidery just like this. It's very difficult to hang on to. I think when we did our sample, yes, we went ahead and stitched everything down, and as you can see from the back, we went ahead and embroidered everything all the way through to the background. That's a lot of fuse up. There's that heart. That's a lot of layers to stitch through, and if you're finding that difficult, don't be afraid to put that cute little heart there instead. And isn't that just adorable? Plus, that adds a little bit of sparkle on that side of the quilt, wherever that ends up being. So that's just another option for you. If you do use the glitter, be sure to use your pressing cloth anytime you're using those types of specialty, the leather, the glitter, whatever you might be doing. All right, we will stay the course, and we will go with what is in our pattern. We will just bring that over. Now, you're going through a lot of layers right now, so you're really going to need to hold that down for quite some time. Now, one thing I realized that I forgot to draw on before is actually those scrolls up above. Now, I didn't place that onto the background, so it's not too late to go ahead and draw those scrolls. Again, those are going to have to be in a permanent marker, and you're going to be stitching with white. So you might consider using a white marking tool like we did last week. We had a white marking tool. So something to think about when you're considering your marking tools, especially if they're not disappearing. You're going to be like, wow, do I really want to mark a black line as I cover that with white thread? Maybe not. That might be the perfect chance to grab that white marking tool. So at that point, we want to remove this. It's a little bit warm. I'm living a little dangerously right now, but I want to show you. Shoot, it's too warm to remove it right now. I need to let that just sit there. That is always my temptation, because in video I'm trying to flow along, but you really want these to cool down because the glue is still in transition. It's trying to decide, am I on this or am I bonded together? And when it's in that intermediate stage of cooling down, it's really not a time to touch that. Once that is cooled down, you'd simply bring your, just like we've done here, we brought that over on top of this, brought the light box as light as we could. We did use that white marking tool like we did last week and mark those scrolls. And why I like that is if we don't like what we're seeing, we can wipe those away and they do not erase with heat. So when you iron that down to the background, they'll still be there. So hopefully that makes sense. Then Kim mentions to go ahead and use a satin stitch to you would need to mark that. So this was done. Notice this is not a fabric shape. So once this is down to the background, and hopefully this is cooling down, I really want to bring this to the background and show you what I'm referring to, because this shape, you're going to be drawing that on. You're going to be having to look through your fabric and to be able to see that if you're going to be doing the satin stitch and also satin stitching this. So let's see here if we can get this. That should be the next invention. It's like this thing that quickly cools this down so that we can just go a little bit faster. Okay, so I think we've got it. Good. So we have our fabric here, our background fabric. Let's turn our light box back on. And we're just going to have about the equal distance from top to bottom and left to right. We're just going to position this down, and I can already see that shape up there. I can see the upper circle really well and the lower portion not so well, of course. There's kind of no real way around that. All right, let's go ahead and iron that down to the background. And then the next step, as we'd said, would be to bring that back here. Go ahead and trace the circle, satin stitch like we did before. She includes, I think it's 3 strands of the gray and then of the red. And you can go ahead and stitch that down. The main thing I really want to jump into is how to do this pocket, because that is very new and very different to probably all of us. So I definitely want to jump forward to that step. If you want to go ahead and do your blanket stitch now and secure all those things down, you can, or you can wait until the pocket's down, because 3 sides of the pocket also get stitched down as well. Actually all 4, but 3 get the blanket stitch. So let's jump back into our instructions, and now we're going to go into the pocket. So with our pocket, we're going to grab our pink fabric, put this aside, move my light box. I'm always trying to make space here. And the first thing she has us do with our pink fabric is trim that to 3 1/4 by 3 1/2 inches. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. Just having the little rulers handy is so nice. I remember when I was an early quilter, I had just the 6 at the time, 6 by 24. That was it. So every little cut I made, I dragged out that big ruler. So I am grateful to have some smaller rulers that are way more practical. Her next step is fold pocket fabric in half, wrong sides together to measure 3 1/4 by 1 3/4. So this is our 3 1/4. So she wants us to, let's see here, let's just confirm. 3¼ by 3½. So she wants us to maintain 3¼ so we'll fold it in half this way. Let's press that, and then I like to always check my measurement. When I have something like that, that's 3¼ by 3½, or 5¼ by 5, I'm like, do I have it in the right orientation, or am I off by 90 degrees? So I appreciate that Kim wrote wrong sides together to measure 3¼ by 1½. So let's check that. Did I fold that the wrong way? My goodness. Yes. Yes, I did. Isn't that amazing? Even when I'm sitting here saying, be careful, this is why I check. That was not planned. That was a happy accident, I guess we'll call it, where it's easy to think we know. I mean, how many decades have I been quilting? Now, I haven't exactly been making pockets and things like that, but still, having that measurement, check yourself, because you can imagine as I have gone into the next step, I'd be like, this doesn't line up. That's because I would have done it wrong. All right, place the lace zipper. So let's grab our zipper now. This is a fun thing to do. Zipper teeth down. So we'll go ahead and down with the zipper pull on the right. So we've got a pull on the right side and our teeth are going to be down. Place the folded edge. So we have our raw edges here and we have our folded edge here. Place the folded edge of the pocket fabric centered on the back of the zipper with a fold just beneath the zipper teeth. Now when I did, I practiced this off camera before we came on today, and here's what I discovered. When I tucked this top edge too close to the zipper teeth, I mean, I was like right there. When I went in with my zipper foot, I actually missed it, even with my needle all the way to the left. And I'm going to do this with you. I want you to see this, because this may not be something that you're very comfortable with, just like me. This is totally new to me. I had it so tucked in close to the zipper that even as I tracked right along the zipper, I missed it. So don't get so close that you too miss it. So I'm just going to scoot that down just a breath, maybe about 1/8 of an inch, and go ahead and pin. You have plenty of space with the zipper. You'll be trimming most of it away. As you can see, I'm just going to zoom forward here. You can see that you'll be trimming most of it away. So don't worry if you're not perfectly centered with that. All right, let's pin that in place. Now what you'll want to do is go ahead and change out the thread in your machine to be the teal that's inside our thread set, and you want to grab a zipper foot. So if you've got that, go ahead and set the machine up for that. I will do the same thing, and when I come back, I'm going to have the zipper foot on, teal will be loaded into my machine, and my needle will be as far left as that can be. So I'm going to show you just the zipper foot here. So as a zipper foot, you can have the needle either on the far left or the far right. We'll go as far left as we can. So we come back, have your machine ready to go, and we'll sew it together. Okay, so we're now at the machine. I have my zipper foot in with my needle as far left as it will go. I've got my teal thread loaded in here. And the next step is to turn the zipper and pocket right side up and stitch the pocket fabric to the zipper, stitching below the zipper teeth. So I'm going to turn this over. And I've got that zipper foot in because I want to track right along here. Now when I first did this, like I said before, I missed this. If you're concerned about doing that, there's nothing wrong about sewing on this side. Just know that you'll need to have the teal thread also in the bobbin, because that's the side that will be seen ultimately is this side. So we'll go ahead. I've tucked that just down just a little bit. Let's see if we can catch it this time. And I'm going to tuck right next to that as best I can. Move my instructions out of the way. I better make sure that's still scooted up there. Didn't want to peek down. Let's see if we caught it this time. Ooh, you know what? See that, how close that is? I'm going to go back. Tell you what I can do here. I can actually just move this ever so slightly where I'm not so tucked in. Let's do that again. I don't want that pocket coming undone because I want to use that pocket. There we go. I just don't think I need to be so close to that zipper. Let's look. Good, I caught it this time. Okay, I'm happy. All right, reality quilting, here we are. And this isn't even quilting, it's crafting at this point, isn't it? Okay, what is next? We're gonna place our pocket with the zipper on the letterbox on the placement lines previously traced. Now, I didn't trace those lines, but let's go ahead and we can do some of those lines. I don't think some of them are necessarily something you have to do. It may be a great alignment if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that zipper and pocket onto the one that we've already stitched down. Now, while we were off camera and I was setting up for the zipper foot, I did go ahead with my friction pen and trace those two circles up above and also the scroll line in a white marking pen so that if I was going to be doing those, I would get that out of the way. All right, let's grab the one that we've gotten this far and let's turn to the page where she's got these zipper alignment things. And you know, really, if you just kind of have a preference, if you like where this is located, you can just visually place that, or you can draw that kind of horizon line that it looks like she has about, trying to keep my head out of the way here, maybe 3/8 of the way down, and then I think she's about 5/8. So there's a lot of value in going ahead and drawing those alignment lines if you can see them. It's tough for me on video again because I can't see it with my light box this far turned down. But if I've got those measurements, I can simply measure down and draw a line, or I can just visually place my ruler where I want it to be. Place that. I'm going to go scoot up just a little bit and just make sure I'm equidistant left to right. Those are the things I'm looking for right now. I'll just move that out of the way. I just want to make sure that my scallop is horizontal with my horizon right underneath my stripe that says letters, and then I have an equidistant, and I can measure all that if I want, and across the bottom. Go ahead and pin this in place. We don't want anything to shift because our next step will be to go to our sewing machine and sew across the top here. And she mentions again using a coordinating thread. Let me turn back to that page real quick. And I think I'll put a pin in here. So let's see, make sure you've got everything. Place pocket with zipper on the letterbox on the placement lines previously traced. I can't see them very well, so I'm just kind of going off a visual horizon here. Visually equidistant, things look good to me. The top rectangle, the placement line, she goes on to details about that. Stitch across the top of the zipper, matching the thread to the zipper, securing it to the block. And that's shown in red. It's a little bit difficult to see it, but it's right there is where she's referring to, where we're just going to stitch from here to here. So let's go do that again with our zipper foot. We will reinforce this one. All right, open the zipper 3/4 of the way within the pocket. And you're like, why is that? Because we need to keep the zipper pull in the portion that will be with our pocket. So I'm going to take the pins out. Let's go ahead and open that. we'll open that 3/4 of the way. Let's trim off any threads. Trim ends of the zipper to match the pocket. So you can see that there's our pocket. Now if you're comfortable, go ahead. Now I should have not stitched past that. Look, see how I started my stitching a little bit further out? That's not right because I can't stitch. I can't cut that zipper right now because that zipper is stitched down. So go ahead, if you make that same mistake as I, grab yourself a seam ripper, and we just need to pull out a couple stitches here because we wanted that to begin exactly where that pocket begins and ends because you need to trim all the way up. So let me seam rip that, and when we come back, let's trim our zipper together, and then we'll actually secure our zipper around those other three along the sides and across the bottom and complete our pocket. Okay, so I've seam ripped those, just a little touch there, pulled those out. So now we can secure this by trimming it and then sewing it. So I think because this is open here and I don't want to get this off, I'm going to close this as best I can with my fingers. I want to mark that before I cut that. I'm not as comfortable just cutting it. I want to know that that line, that pocket, this is probably overkill. You're like, Jen, just cut the zipper. I know. I'm just a little nervous about that. I'm going to do the same on this side, just so I have something to shoot for when I'm trimming it. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim that up. It is good to have it marked, actually. You're just a little more confident that we're in the right spot. Okay, how cute is that? Oh gosh, that's adorable. Okay, so that bottom kind of wants to scoot out a little bit on me. I am going to put a pin back in here. I don't want that to go anywhere. Put that in there. All right, just to keep that. And now keep in mind that zipper pull can slide right off. So keep that right there. So that's going to be the first thing we want to, I think that's one of the first things she has us do here, is trim the ends of the zipper to match the pocket. Make sure zipper pull stays in the middle of the pocket until sides of the zipper are sewn because it can come off either end. Stitch sides, including sides of zipper and bottom of the pocket, into place. So while we were off camera, I went ahead and loaded the next color thread in there, which is going to be my pink, and changed out to my normal presser foot, brought my needle back into center. I'm just going to go ahead and stitch, gosh, very carefully. I haven't stitched across many zippers in my life. Very carefully across that and stitch just a straight stitch. I can see they went back later and did a cute little blanket stitch as a little detail, but she's very clear to back stitch across the zipper teeth on both sides to secure the zipper pull. So I think it wouldn't harm at all to go ahead and just keep going and kind of just lock that down. But as a minimum, go across that zipper pull to secure that. So let's do that. And you could really probably keep that teal thread in there. Probably match a little bit better. But let's go ahead and we're going to go slowly here. Look at that Bernina just go. You know what, I'm just going to keep going. I kind of want to just lock this thing down personally. We can come back and do a cute little blanket stitch like she shows in the photo. Look at it go across there like it's nothing. That's amazing. I should have probably backed up across the other one just to be sure. Look at that. Sewing across the zipper just seems so scary, but now we have a true working pocket. How cute is that? You know, really, if you're going to be displaying this in your home, you could put little love notes in there for your significant other, for your kids. Just a really sweet thing to actually use this little zipper. Okay, let's move on. What is next? That was actually a lot of fun. I will go ahead and off camera after we're done today, go add my blanket stitch in like they've done, which I really love. And then she's going to have you square that up with the 8.5 by 10.5 rectangular pop ruler. So you want to square that all up once that is done. Let's move on. What is next? We have signed, sealed, and delivered our adorable little mailboxes. You've seen me do plenty of the layering. There's one thing I did want to mention to you about the dimensional flags, and that's back again in week 1 where we mentioned that there's a couple extra shapes that we threw in there for you. And one of the shapes was the base here of these mailboxes. Now you don't have to use those shapes if you don't want to. Let me grab those out so you know what I'm referring to. That's this shape that you'd have had with your applique, all your laser cut shapes. If you don't want to use our shape, you'll just need to be doing a satin stitch with your machine. So let's go ahead and grab these out. They are adorable. Oh my goodness. And again, you know, if you don't want to do the satin stitch and you have some of the red glitter left over and you prefer to use that, throw that in there instead. Add a little bit of sparkle to that. But let's grab our shapes here. And we've again built some tuck under. So let's just take a quick peek. I just want to point out a couple things on that. Let's find, there we are, we're back here. Okay. So we're definitely going to be going ahead to build our mailbox onto our applique pressing sheet first, ironing that down and bringing that to our background as one complete unit as we've been all throughout our Love Notes quilt. So you'll grab, of course, this, but before I even lay that down there, it's easier for you to see the sequencing will be with your post first. That'll go down. Remember, we've already built that tuck under for you, so you don't need to drop your piece down. Anchor the bottom of that and let that shoot up underneath. Then the next piece that actually goes down is the black. Again, we've got that tuck under. That's going to shoot out underneath here. Once you have your envelope put together, and I thought I had an envelope, I guess I don't. Let's pretend that that's all put together, and I would do that ahead of time, by the way. Go ahead and make that one step. I think I've already taken off the paper. I have. And if you're going to do the satin stitch, I would encourage you to fuse this together, take that to the back, trace the heart with a micron pen, then go ahead and put that down. Actually, you know what? You know what needs to go next? Well, this is what goes next. Okay, got myself a little confused there. That's going to go down. Then we'll come with our mailbox kind of frame, I guess I would call it. I'm just showing you the sequence here. And then your final piece, if you choose, will be our black here. And you'll fuse that all together. Merge that all together, peel that off, and then position that onto your background. And at that point, you can stitch around, do whatever you want, straight stitch, blanket stitch. Let's see what we did. Looks like we did maybe a combination of those. Looks like mostly blanket stitch, and then probably around the black, a straight stitch. So you'll complete that. And so that's not anything that's new to you. We've done that before. We've done applique to the background, stitching everything down. But I definitely wanted to mention this piece because in the pattern, she has you doing a satin stitch. Again, that's your choice, whether you want to go ahead and do the satin stitch, or if you prefer to use the laser shapes that we've provided, you would skip that satin stitch for that mailbox base. All right, let's keep moving along here. I do see that one thing she points out when you get ready to do the square up of this, the 6.5 by 8.5, is she says square the finished block to 6.5 by 8.5 with post on the bottom edge of the ruler so it kind of sinks into that particular row of the quilt. And the dimensional flag will be added after the quilting is complete. But I want to go over that with you. That one gave me some challenges as well. This has definitely stretched me and helped me grow in areas like presser feet, like zipper foot, buttonhole. I don't normally do these things. I'm a quilter, so I'm very much being stretched, and that's good. That's good for me to grow, and hopefully you're enjoying these challenges as well. So let's talk about the dimensional flags. Well, we might be adding those later. Let's talk about how do we do that. So that's where we can get to grab some of the black felt out of your embellishing kit. I have 2 of those, and she mentioned they're 2 3x4s. I didn't cut them down. They're just the size that came in my kit. She has us trace our flag designs onto paper, and those are on page 36. Grab a piece of paper. The thinner, the better, because you're going to be tearing that away. You don't want to grab anything that's going to be thick. And you want to be able to center those designs kind of in the middle of that paper so that once you have that down, you have plenty of places to pin that. When I first traced it, I grabbed just a small piece of paper and it was kind of squeezed in there, and I realized when I put that down to my felt that I didn't have really any place to pin. So make sure you leave yourself plenty of space to do that. All right, so you'll trace your flag designs onto paper, which we've done. We'll place 2 layers of the felt together. We'll pin the paper on top of the felt. And now we are going to, she mentioned a couple of things. Use the utility triple stitch, which I don't know if I even have that on my machine. I bet I do, knowing that I have a BERNINA. Or straight stitch on a sewing machine, set the stitch length of 2.5 millimeters and stitch the flag outline. So just to be, I don't know what machine you're sewing with. So even though I don't have a doubt that this BERNINA has that, I'm going to do a simple stitch with you with a nice short stitch length. Anytime I know I'm going to be tearing paper off of a project, I shorten my stitch length even further. She mentions 2.5. I went ahead and sewed one ahead of time just to show you what this would look like. Pretty darn cute, isn't it? And I did that on a stitch length of 2.0 because I didn't want any of my stitching to come out. Using the buttonhole feature on a sewing machine, you can stitch that little buttonhole, or if you don't want to do that, maybe you're not comfortable with that, you can just cut a little slit in there. And that's where it'll be the flag and the cute little buttons that are in our embellishing kit. That's what we'll be going onto. Of course, you're going to tear the paper away. But let's go ahead. I just wanted to show you having a nice short stitch length. Now I need to go ahead. I'm so used to only thinking about my bobbin thread, but realizing that I need black on the top and the bobbin, I'm going to go ahead and change my thread out right now to be black on the top, black on the bobbin, and you're going to need to be doing the same. So I'll be right back and we'll be all ready to stitch down our flag for our mailboxes. So I've got black in the top, black in my bobbin, and that's because I know I'm going to be seeing that thread on both sides. And I've reduced my stitch length on this to 2. I know she mentions 2.0, but for my particular machine, I know I may run into a little bit of trouble with ripping out my stitches if I don't have an even shorter stitch length. Okay, so we're just going to stitch on that line, and let's get started. Oop, I went back a little bit further. All right, so we can, no problem, we will not even be able to see that. Try to stop exactly where you want to stop. Once these are sewn, this part right here is the buttonhole. that, as Kim mentioned, you can either do the buttonhole stitch if your machine is capable of doing it and you're comfortable doing it. And if you, even if it's been a while, go ahead and practice that. It might be really fun to add that. Otherwise, you would just cut around this 1/8 of an inch, and you're going to cut this with a little slit. Just get in there with your scissors or maybe a seam ripper and cut the slit. And it would really perform the same function as if you did the buttonhole. Now, because this is an amazing machine, I am going to go ahead and do the buttonhole. So I even need to change out my presser foot and set up my machine. So if you'd like to see that, go ahead and stay with me on that one. Otherwise, you'll be trimming, as I said, 1/8 of an inch all the way around that. So let's go do that blanket stitch, or excuse me, the buttonhole stitch. I want you to see that how just amazing that Bernina is at that, as well as, of course, all the other stitches this machine can do. Okay, so we're all set up for our buttonhole. So let's give it a try here. Oh, that's fun. That's really fun. Okay, so we'll work with this one real quick. So we'll come back to the front, and I am going to cut that one out, and then I'll go back and stitch those down a little bit, the others, do the buttonhole stitch and cut those as well, because I will need those. Literally next week, we are putting this thing together. All right, get your really nice thicker shears. This is when you really want to have just a nice long even cut versus taking kind of short little cuts at it, jabs at it. And then you'll just cut that out and remove your paper. And again, we don't get to sew this on probably till after our quilt's actually quilted. These types of things would interfere with our quilting, but how cute is that? And then just tear the paper away. So let's talk about what is left over. What had you already had bags for and we didn't use? You're like, well, what about this? That's the end of the instructions for section 4, but I see that I have something called Twitter padded and border blocks. I don't know what these are for, but they're going to have to happen in week 5, which is coming up. So I know you have a lot to do. We covered a lot of territory. All that satin stitching is going to take you some time to get accomplished. And of course, stitching these things and getting everything cut out and ready to go. Of course, get everything squared up. And in our final week, we'll be putting everything together. So thank you so much. It's been a longer video. We know that. And we'll see you next week as we unveil the mystery of Love Notes and we put our entire quilt together. I'll see you next Monday.